Okay, so year 10, this question here, we've got a diagram with kind of a couple of like overlapping triangles and then a whole bunch of information given to us here. We are trying to get to the size of angle EAD. So EAD means it's this angle here. That's the angle we're trying to find. I'm going to call it X. Okay, that's what we're trying to get to. The first thing I would be thinking about is we've got right-angled triangles here, but we've got angles involved. So because of that, it's going to be trigonometry, not just Pythagoras. So we're definitely going to need to use some trigonometry. Now, you can only use trigonometry to find an angle if you know two sides. I only know one side of this triangle so far, so I need to find another side somehow. So I'm going to see if I can find this side. And I can find this side here, the side ED, by thinking about this whole big triangle, BDC. So with triangle BDC, let's label up our sides. So in triangle BDC, this is the hypotenuse, this side is the opposite, and then this side is the adjacent. So then, what I'm thinking in my head, I know the hypotenuse, I want to know the opposite, the adjacent is irrelevant to me. So I'm left with O and H. Thinking about so, ka, toa, we're thinking about O and H, which means it's going to be so we are using our sine, our sin ratio. So what that says is sine of the angle equals the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. You can do this using like a weird triangle, but this is like the maths of what's going on here. So we've got sine of an angle equals the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. So we get sine 40, because that's what the angle is, equals the opposite. Well, the opposite, I don't know what it is. I'm going to call it y. Why not? So I'm going to call it y, and then the hypotenuse is 8.6. So we've got sine 40 equals y divided by 8.6. This is an equation that we can solve, and to solve it, we just need to multiply both sides by 8.6. So when I'm going to get my calculator out now, and I'm going to type in sine 40, close the bracket, super important, times by 8.6 gives me this here, I'm going to call it 5.528 for the moment. So I know then, going back to my diagram, that this whole length here is 5.528 centimetres. Now, how is that helpful to me? That is helpful to me because of this. E is the midpoint of DB. So if I know that this whole line is 5.528 centimetres, I can work out half that line with really not very much difficulty because I can just halve this number here. So therefore, divided by 2 gives me that ED equals, let's call it 2.76 centimetres. Okay? So now I've got ED equals 2.76 centimetres. Just going back to our diagram. We now can just look at triangle AED. So we're going to have to do some more labelling, and it's going to get a little bit messy here, but let's not stress. Looking at triangle AED. This is the hypotenuse. This here is the opposite. This is our angle, and this is opposite it. And then this side is our adjacent, because it's next to the angle. Thinking about our SOHCAHTOA again. At this point, the hypotenuse is irrelevant to me. I don't know how long it is, and I'm not being asked to find it out. But I do know how long the opposite is, and I do know how long the adjacent is. So O and A means we need to use our tan ratio to find EAD. Now my tan ratio looks like this. Tan of the angle equals the opposite over the adjacent. So tan of the angle equals, now my opposite up here was 2.76, my adjacent was 4.4. So 2.76 over 4.4. Now this is tan of the angle. We want to get just to the angle. So to do that, we use the inverse of tan. The inverse of tan is tan minus 1. 2.76 over 4.4. and that's going to tell me what the angle is. So all I need to do now is I get my calculator, shift tan fraction 2.76 over 4.4, close the bracket like that, equals 32.09892875. Let's just go back to our question. Oh, it's quite hard to get you to see this all. Our question wants our answer correct to 1 decimal place. If I round this here to 1 decimal place, I'm going to end up with 32.1. And so this angle here is 32.1 degrees for all 4 marks.